Hello guys, welcome back. I'm Yusuf Shakeel and you are watching CSS tutorial series. In this video, we are going to learn about CSS padding property. So let's get started. Alright guys, I have opened brackets and now I'll go ahead and create a new file and I'll save this as padding.html and I'll write the following HTML code. So we have the doc type HTML, opening and closing HTML tag, we have the head tag, and we have set the title to padding. Now inside the CSS folder, let us go ahead and create another file and save it as padding.css. Now inside the HTML file, inside the head, we are going to include this padding.css file which we created inside the CSS folder. So we'll write link rel href and we'll set this to css/padding.css. And now we'll open this in live preview. Alright. So what is padding? Well, padding is a region between the border and the content of an HTML element. So if you look at this image, this represents an HTML element. And this region highlighted in blue is the content of that HTML element. And it has a width and height. And the region outside this content, which is represented in green, is the region called the padding. Alright, let us go ahead and create a div inside the body. And let us give this div an ID, sample-div1. Now inside this div, let us create a paragraph and let us set the content to hello world. Now before we give any padding to this element, that is this paragraph hello world, let us learn how to inspect padding for any given element using developer tools in Chrome. So let me increase the width of this browser. Alright. Now to open developer tools, we can go to view, developer and select developer tools. Or we can right click on the page and select inspect. Or we can click on this icon and go to more tools and then select developer tools. So let us go ahead and open developer tools. So there are a couple of tabs inside the developer tools, and in this tutorial we'll be focusing on the elements tab, and on the right side we'll be focusing on the styles tab. Now to inspect an element in the page, we can either right click on that element and select inspect, or in the dev tools we can click on this icon which says select an element in the page to inspect it, and when we click on it, it is highlighted. And now we can hover the mouse on top of an element that we want to inspect and we have to click on it. So when we click on that element, in the elements tab, that element is highlighted in blue. And inside the styles tab, if we scroll down, we'll reach this region which tells us about the width and height of the content highlighted in blue. It tells us about the padding, border and margin for that element. At this moment, our element paragraph having content hello world is having a width of 1075 and height of 18 pixels. And we don't have any padding for this element. Neither do we have any border. But there is a default margin applied to this paragraph, and this margin is 16 pixels at the top and at the bottom. So let us go inside the padding.css file, and since we are going to target this paragraph which is inside this div having ID sample-div1, so inside our CSS file we'll write hash sample-div1 space p. Since p is a descendant or child of this div, So we are writing space, then P. And first let us give this paragraph a border of 1 pixel. So we'll write border 1 pixel solid #111. So this line is giving this paragraph a border of 1 pixel solid and its color is #111. And now we'll give this element, our paragraph, a padding of, let's say, 20 pixels. And now to check this, let us go back to our browser, right click on the element and select inspect. And now if we look at the element, we can see it has a padding of 20 pixels at the top, bottom, left and right. And it has a border of 1 pixels top, bottom, left and right. We can also apply padding in percentage. So let us go back to our HTML file and let us create another div and give this div an ID sample-div2. And inside this div, let us create a paragraph happy. And now inside our CSS file, we'll write #sample-div2 space and then the selector P. And let us give this paragraph a border of 1 pixel solid #111. And now we'll give a padding in terms of percentage. So let's try 10%. So we have applied 10% padding to this element, and this is with respect to the width of the browser. So if we increase the width of the browser, you will see that the padding is now increased. And if we decrease the width, the padding decreases. So if we want a dynamic padding, then we can use percentage. And if we want a static one, then we can use pixels. So for this element, the padding is always 20 pixels. But for this element, the padding increases and decreases as we increase or decrease the width of the browser. Padding is applied to an element at the top, right, bottom, and left. And we can apply individual padding at the top, right, bottom, and left using the following properties. So padding, we can use padding -top to apply padding at the top. This can be in pixels or percentage. We can use padding -right in pixels and percentage to apply padding at the right. We can use padding -bottom in pixels and percentage to apply padding at the bottom. We can use padding -left in pixels and percentage to apply padding at the left side. So let us go back to our HTML file and create a paragraph. And let's say we set the content to hello world. And let us give this paragraph an ID sample-p1. Now let us give this paragraph having ID sample-p1 a padding of 10 pixels at the top, a padding of 20 pixels at the right side, 30 pixels at the bottom, and 40 pixels at the left side. So inside our CSS file, since we are going to target this paragraph having ID sample-p1, so we'll write #sample-p1. Let us give this paragraph a border of 1 pixel solid hash 111. Now we'll give this paragraph a padding of 10 pixels at the top, padding of 20 pixels at the right side, padding of 30 pixels at the bottom, and padding of 40 pixels at the left side. And now if we look at the output, we have some padding for this element. So let us inspect this element in DevTools. And now if we look at the padding for this element, we can see it has a padding of 10 pixels at the top, 20 at the right, 30 pixels at the bottom, and 40 pixels at the left side. We can use a shortcut for this padding top, right, bottom, and left by using just the padding property. So let us go back to our HTML file and create another paragraph and set the content to happy. And let us give this paragraph an ID. And let us give this a padding of 10 pixels at the top, 20 at the right side, 30 at the bottom, and 40 pixels at the left side. So inside our CSS file, we'll write hash sample-p2. And let us give this a border of 1 pixel, solid, hash 111. And now, since we are going to give this paragraph padding of 10 pixels at the top, 20 pixels at the right side, 30 pixels at the bottom, and 40 pixels at the left side, and we are using the padding property. So the first value for this padding property is for the top, the second one is for the right, third one is for the bottom, and the fourth one is for the left side. So we'll give 10 pixels for the top, 20 pixels for the right, 30 pixels for bottom, and 40 pixels for left. And now if we check this in DevTools, we can see this element, that is this paragraph, is now having 10 pixels padding at the top, 20 pixels at the right side, 30 pixels at the bottom, and 40 pixels at the left side. Now let's say we want to apply 10 pixels padding at the top and 20 pixels padding at the right and left and 30 pixels padding at the bottom. So in that case, we can merge the left and right value into one. So inside our HTML file, let us create another paragraph and give this paragraph an ID sample-p3, and let us set the content to CSS. And now inside our CSS file, we'll write hash sample-p3, and let us give this a border of 1 pixels, solid, hash 111. And we'll be using the padding property. And now for this paragraph, that is for this element, we want 10 pixels padding at the top, 20 pixels padding at the right side and left side, and 30 pixels padding at the bottom. So we'll use top and we'll merge right and left, and we'll use bottom. So 10 pixels for the top, 20 pixels for right and left, and 30 pixels for bottom. And now if we inspect this in DevTools, you can see this element is now having 10 pixels padding at the top, 20 pixels at the right side and left side, and 30 pixels at the bottom. Now let's say we want a padding of 10 pixels at the top and bottom and 20 pixels at the right and left. So for that, we will merge the top and bottom and right and left. So inside our HTML file, we'll write a paragraph and we'll give this an ID sample-p4, and we'll set the content for this paragraph to, let's say, hello world. And now inside our CSS file, we'll write hash sample-p4, and we'll give this a border of 1 pixel, solid hash 111, and we'll be using the padding property. And for this paragraph, that is for this element, we want a padding of 10 pixels top bottom, so we'll merge top bottom, and 20 pixels for right and left, so we'll merge right and left. So 10 pixels for top bottom and 20 pixels for right and left. And now if we inspect this element in DevTools, you can see this element is now having 10 pixels padding at the top and bottom and 20 pixels at the right side and left side. And now let's say we have a paragraph and we want to give it a padding of 10 pixels on all the sides. So for that, we'll merge the padding value for the top, right, bottom, and left into one. So inside our HTML file, let us create another paragraph and give this an ID of, let's say, sample-p5, and set the content to hello. And now inside the CSS file, we'll write hash sample-p5, and let us give this a border of 1 pixel, solid hash 111. And since we want to give this paragraph, that is this element, a padding of 10 pixels on all the sides, so using the padding property, we'll write 10 pixels, and this will apply 10 pixels padding on all the sides. So this is a short form for merging the top padding, right padding, bottom padding, and left padding. And now if we inspect this element in DevTools, we can see this element has a 10 pixel padding at the top, right, bottom, and left. So the shorthand notation to apply padding to an element using the padding property. So shorthand notation using padding property. So if we want to apply padding of different value at the top, right, bottom, and left, then we use for top, right, bottom, and left. So for this, we use padding, and we set the value for top. This can be in pixels or percentage, then right, then bottom, and then left. And value can be in pixels and percentage. And if we want to apply padding of different value at the top and bottom, and we want to apply same value padding at the right side and left side, so we have top, right, and left merged together, and bottom. So for that we use padding, top, right and left, and bottom. And the value is in pixel and percentage. So in this case, for paragraph having ID sample dash p3, we are applying a padding of 10 pixels at the top, 20 pixels at the right side and left side, and 30 pixels at the bottom. So we are using this shorthand notation. And if you want to apply X value padding at the top and bottom and Y value padding at the right and left, so in that case, we merge the top, bottom together and right and left together. So we write padding, top, bottom merged together, and right, left merged together. And the value is in pixels and percentage. So in this case, for paragraph having ID sample dash p4, we are applying a padding of 10 pixels at the top and bottom and 20 pixels at the right side and left side. And if we want to apply same value padding on all the sides, that is, we want to merge top, right, bottom, and left together, then we write padding and we give the value same for top, right, bottom, left. And this is in pixel and percentage. So in this case, we have a paragraph having ID sample dash p5, and for this paragraph we are giving a padding of 10 pixels at the top, right, bottom, and left. So we are using this shorthand notation where padding property is set to 10 pixels value. We can make a child element inherit the padding value from its parent element. So let's say inside our HTML file, we have a div having ID sample-div3. And let's say inside this div we have a paragraph, and let's say the content is Batman. And now let's say inside our CSS file, we write sample-div3, and we give this div a border of 1 pixel solid #111, and we give this div a padding of 10 pixels. And now let's say we want to make this paragraph, which is the child of this div having ID sample-div3. So let's say we want to inherit the padding value of the parent, and we want to make this child element inherit that padding value. So for that, we'll write hash sample-div3 space, and we'll write the selector. In this case, it is P for paragraph. And we want this paragraph to inherit the padding value from its parent element. So we'll write padding and we'll set the value to inherit. And now if we look at this element in DevTools, we can see the paragraph is now having padding value of 10 pixels at the top, right, bottom, and left. And if we inspect the div, that is the div having ID sample-div3, it is also having a padding of 10 pixels on all the sides because of this line. So if we set the padding property to inherit for a child element, then it will inherit the padding value from its parent element. In this case, this paragraph is inheriting the padding value of 10 pixels on all the side from its parent element, which is a div having ID sample-div3. Alright guys, this brings us to the end of this tutorial. I'll post the tutorial notes on my website tuiclassroom.com. The link will be in the description. And all the code that we are writing in this tutorial series, I'll post them in my GitHub repository. The link will be in the description, so feel free to check that out. And if you find this video interesting, then please give this video a like and please subscribe my channel. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video, and like always, stay happy and keep smiling. Bye.